So here we are in Rochester. You moved here from Virginia where you went to med school. Rochester is home to you now, it sounds like.
We couldn't see moving anywhere else. The attraction of warmer weather never really drove us to think about moving south. And our friends and family here definitely are what kept us here. And the kids' friendships and the lifestyle here definitely kept us thinking that this was the best place to be.
What originally attracted you to medicine?
I, in school, liked science and probably a couple of doctors I knew growing up. My grandfather was a physician, and being a teenager, I heard about it, but it felt like a good fit. I mean, when you're 17, 18, I don't think you think ahead about the lifestyle considerations of that career, which most doctors will tell you are challenging, but the benefits of getting to know people in a really intimate way at crucial parts of their lives definitely was something I could see early on felt like the right fit. And the program here emphasized communication and listening to people, and I felt I was pretty good at that. So I think it was a melding of the experience as I started and having seen people I knew and admired when I was growing up.
What type of hobbies have you enjoyed over the years?
Well, until we stopped working, there wasn't that much. I used to play golf when I could walk. Since stopping work, I picked playing the trumpet back up, so I enjoyed that. And really, prior to that, it was sports related to what the kids were doing. So the gardening, I think one of the things we miss about our previous home was working in the yard and gardening. So those would be the things that were the hobbies that we enjoyed.
When did you start to notice an issue? What brought you into the doctor's office, the first symptoms?
About 9 to 12 months before I was diagnosed, I started noticing when I would run on our treadmill, one of my feet would just scuff the track as it would go by. At work, I noticed my dexterity wasn't quite as good. One time I was suturing somebody up and I thought I used to be quicker at this. And we were at a wedding and I couldn't move my feet quite as well as I used to when I was trying to dance. So it was those subtle changes, and I recognized something neurological was wrong. I mean, with my background, I could sort of rule out certain things that I really didn't feel it was. And made an appointment for myself with a neurologist here that I knew, and pretty quickly he sorted out what was wrong.
What was it like when you got the diagnosis ALS?
Well, it was obviously a shock to hear those words. In medicine, ALS had been one of those things that when you hear it, your stomach sort of sinks, knowing the limited approach to it that we could give patients. Both my wife and I had had patients who had had ALS, so I think when I came home that day from the neurology appointment, our minds, I'm sure, went to picturing what we had seen in patients. We pretty quickly decided that, and I think this is the case with most people when they're diagnosed, that they've got to figure out what's next, both in terms of what to do for the problem and how to make that fit into your life as it is, work, family, those kinds of things. The hardest part, obviously, was explaining it to our children. And when I hear patients now who I communicate with about how they explained it to their children and family, I can empathize, knowing what it was like to explain it to our children. It was hard in the sense of thinking about how the diagnosis would affect me and my wife, and obviously, but how it would, how the ripple effect would carry over to our children and parents and siblings. But we moved ahead and confirmed the diagnosis, as many people do, with a second opinion, which I think is valuable, and looked into research projects to participate in.
How long ago was the diagnosis?
5.5 years.
And here you are, we're talking.
Yeah.
Do you feel fortunate in some respect as far as how the progression has gone?
I think about this a lot, Adam. I feel really very lucky in the sense that my experience with this has been in many ways, although I have symptoms that are similar to most people with ALS, the time course being so much slower is something I'm really grateful about every day.
There is a very vocal and passionate group out there when it comes to ALS research and awareness. What has that been like for you? You obviously were aware of that group, but to now be part of it.
Well, being part of it has really opened my eyes up to the spectrum of illness in people. I think about the young woman veteran we met at our first ALS conference in Washington 2 years ago. 32 years old, by yourself diagnosed with ALS. The father who I've gotten to know, who is in his early 50s, mid-career, 2 teenage daughters, and how to look ahead to what his future is going to hold. The fact that my experience has been so slowly progressing has really allowed me to step back from the day-to-day. Many people with ALS get so, and appropriately so, consumed with, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of my family? I was at the end of my career, and while I might have liked to work longer, I was able to stop, and now I have the time to do lots of things that really are meaningful to me. Obviously, my wife and children and siblings and family, being able to spend time with them like anyone wants to after they're finished working, but knowing that, well, I'm sure my life expectancy may be shorter than the average 66-year-old, which is what I am now, but I've exceeded the typical life expectancy of someone with ALS, which is about 4 to 5 years. So I can plan ahead. I see this as, I've always been an optimistic person, and I'm really looking at a very long horizon for myself. You know, we all like to think about what may happen to us in old age, and I'm no different. But knowing that there may be a limit that's different than what I had planned on 5 to 10 years ago does give me a different perspective, and I love that, actually. Having the time now also to think about how to help other people with ALS has really been a big part of how I spend my time.
How has it changed your perspective?
I think it, well, helps remind me that people who suddenly are struck with a major life change need our help and support. I've always thought that way, but it's helped reinforce that, Adam. It has also shown me that getting help from leaders in government can really be a big, important thing for someone, not just like me, but anyone to do. A lot of the work of the ALS Association is to provide opportunities for advocacy, and being able to speak directly with congressmen and senators, which I've had a chance to do the past couple of years, has really, well, has been empowering to me. And when I can see that they are prepared to take action on behalf of people who need help, who aren't as fortunate as I am, it really makes me feel good. The risk of isolation of people with ALS who don't have the kind of support I do is a very real problem, and organizations that provide that I think are very important to support.
So it's not just the research. When people say supporting an ALS cause or a walk or whatever event is going on, it's not just about the research and a cure, but also the support that might be out there for folks who have it.
Oh, sure, Adam. I mean, I think that the benefit to walks or any gathering of people related to any cause helps show the people who are struggling, even if they don't know us, shows them that there are people who care enough to get out there and work to their benefit. I think they're knowing that people care enough to make an effort for them, I think really is a great setting for showing love and support to people we may not even know. I mentioned earlier a man I've gotten to know the past few months, and one of the benefits I've felt I've been able to provide is speaking with people who I get connected with who have ALS. And they're knowing that others can advocate for them, I think is a really powerful service to provide them.
My last question is, when we talk about research and treatment, where are we when it comes to all that and ALS right now?
Well, the work on drugs is definitely accelerating. Right now, currently, there have been only 2 drugs approved that relate to treatment, and both of those have been shown to slow the progress, but nothing beyond that. And the ALS community, I think, recognizes there's unlikely to be no magic bullet that is going to cure the disease. The progress right now has been accelerating, but it still has a long way to go. I like to think about how treatment of ALS is similar to the way we as a country and society have been able to approach cancer treatment. Right now, many cancer patients, as we know, are able to live very long, productive lives because treatments in combination can slow their disease, reduce the risk of relapse. There are better and better drugs to treat side effects of chemotherapy, for instance. And the hope with ALS is that more research will provide combinations of approaches that will allow people to live better lives. The ALS Association just released their new goal, which is to make ALS a livable disease by 2030. And what that means is that people like me or others who may have trouble walking because of stiffness or trouble speaking like I do, or trouble with muscle fatigue, that combinations of drug treatments may allow them to live better lives with a improved quality. And this is especially important for younger people, the people I've alluded to who want hope that they can be around for their families for a long time. So that's the direction of the research right now. I'm very hopeful. I think most patients with ALS, when they heard that goal announced at a recent meeting, were thrilled and gave them a real optimism that, sure, we can look 10 years ahead and say, sure, I'm going to be able to have a improved quality of life and be here for my family and community.